All right, here we go. Thanks for joining us. The latest edition of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley Engelhardt. I'm Matt Chernoff. Thank you guys so much for dialing us in. A couple of ways you can enjoy this podcast. You can subscribe at any podcast feed. Just search Deals and Deadlines. Or if you're watching us, hi. You can see it each week on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, Hadley, we've got a lot of ground to cover here today. Let's start with the latest news as we're recording this on Wednesday. A big trade that happened in the NFL. The Steelers finally moved George Pickens, and I say finally. There had been a lot of rumors. There had been some talk about how George was in the locker room, what he was to deal with. Well, the Cowboys have acquired George Pickens. Steelers in return get a 2026 third-round pick and a 2027 fifth. Cowboys also get a sixth-round pick coming back. This is not just this deal itself, but I want to talk to you about the big picture. This is the ever-changing landscape of the NFL. We just did not see these things, I'll say 10 years ago. The way teams are so willing to trade, not just during the draft, but here in the offseason, he doesn't want to be here. Let's make this happen. And now Pickens moves. It's just a different picture of the league.
100%. The interesting thing about this is that George is a great player. He really is. He's a game changer. And whatever team he's on, including Pittsburgh and now Dallas, he is a difference maker. The interesting thing here is what Pittsburgh is telling everybody. Obviously, we heard about the locker room issues and the conflict of personalities with Mike Tomlin and just, everything around him. And no one can take away from what he's done on the field, even at UGA. I mean, he's an amazing player. But there's going to be an extension talks, and that's part of the process. And that's part of the thought process with Pittsburgh, or any team for that matter, is do you want to commit to this player financially, and then you run into problems trading that player with an extension already attached. So what it tells Dallas is, hey, here's the player. We're going to get the compensation for a third rounder and whatever they're getting. And in return, Dallas has him. And Dallas probably is going to see where it's at before they decide on, are we going to do this big-time extension? It gives them some time. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't kill Dallas. It's just a third-round draft choice. So I think it's a win-win. It's great for Pickens to go to a new place where somebody wants him, needs him, and they need to win, Dallas.
Well, add to it, too. Not that Dak is great, but he's very good, and he's a lot more stable than what Pickens has played with through the years with the ever-changing quarterbacks in Pittsburgh. So he'll have a chance to put up numbers which could equal the money.
Correct. And he's not going to be the one guy.
Right.
He's going to be the number two guy.
CD Lamb's the one.
Correct.
Right.
So it helps. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Agreed.
And I look at it from Dallas's perspective. Forget the long-term commitment that they may make to him. Short-term, if this is a failure and a bust, what's the downside? Yep. We get a great player. We have controlled salary. And it's a third-round draft choice and some other later-round compensations in 27 or whatever it may be when we finally get the final numbers. So I think everybody wins, and Pittsburgh wins because they need to move on. They didn't feel like it was the right locker room. They got the right pieces in place, and without Pickens there, doesn't affect them as much. So I think this is a great trade for all parties.
Okay, let's talk about the other big story this week. The Ravens released Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker, the football player, the kicker. Well, there's a lot around this, though, that Tucker's a Hall of Fame kicker, right? That's not something you take lightly. He's been in that organization forever. But as Hadley alludes to, this past season, we heard several allegations of sexual misconduct at massage parlors, at massage sessions, different massage therapists. I think the number got in the double digits, and it was a lot of creepy, uncomfortable stuff. But the Ravens, when they released him, and I should mention they drafted a kicker, it was all about thank you, Justin. It was your career achievement. Now, there was no video. There was no, you would tribute, you would see, but it makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable that we all know why Justin Tucker is being released. His productivity's gone down. He's now engaged in this scandal, but they did the thank you on the way out the door. That's some PR manipulation.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of how the Ravens handled this, but let's go back to the fact pattern here. Forget the sexual misconduct allegations. He is one of the highest paid kickers in the league. His production has been down. They drafted a kicker. Once you draft a kicker or a punter, whoever the incumbent is gone. That is the way it happens 99% of the time. You don't waste a draft choice on somebody that may compete for a job. So were those factors the majority of the factors, and these allegations pushed it over the top? I don't know. But with those allegations pending, and I think you're correct, that the alleges double digits, so it's not just a one-off. There's a lot of talk going on. again, if his production was high and his salary was good, they'd work around it until the fact pattern got out there and they would support him. I think it's more that, and it gave them the reason to move on. And
but they called it a football decision.
Well, they all do, right?
Always.
They're not going to say anything
Right.
that because of these allegations, because again, they're just allegations,
Sure.
and they don't want to go ahead and.
But they're allegations, but there's common sense that does weigh into life at some point when it's all these stories that are all the same. At some point, it could be he said, she said, I have one, I have some. This is so many of the same. This happened to me here. This happened to me here. At some point, I know you're innocent until proven guilty, or allegations are just that. Common sense has to weigh in.
Correct, but then you look at the financial commitment that the Browns made with Deshaun,
Sure.
and has similar type allegations and similar lawsuits, but he's still on the team because they have a bigger commitment financially, and when healthy, he produces at a high level.
Well,
and so, that's debatable, obviously.
The morals get pushed aside for the money. It always has.
Correct. And for wins,
Right.
and for productive players, and we see this all the time. We've talked about this in the past about Shedeur Sanders and why he quote unquote dropped, and there's some personality conflicts. Again, if you were that good and that valuable, you would have been drafted higher, and they moved the stuff to the side. So those are the real factors in it. And did the off-the-field stuff play into this? No doubt about it. But the lack of production and the age and the financial commitment, all those played into
It made it easier.
the final decision.
So you have told me about clients that you have worked with where you need some PR makeovers, right? You have people who do that. And I want to bring that up for a reason. The Bill Belichick stuff continues to be fascinating because we found so much more out about his girlfriend than we did about his ex-wife or relationships in the history of his career, which the fascinating part of Bill is it's always been no distractions, football, nothing else. And since the Jordan Hudson relationship, we've seen nothing but off the field with Bill. Mike McCarthy of Front Office Sports spoke to 3 crisis PR firms, and these are people you tell me you work with recommendations for Bill to try to clean things up. And they went through some common sense things. Number 1, stick all to football at this point. Cancel book tour interviews moving forward to promote your book. Realize the predicament you're in. Hire a real PR firm and a team, not her running it for you. Replace Jordan Hudson in that role. Come up with better answers before you sit down for these interviews. And the biggest part is you better win football games, which we all know. But some of that's common sense. Some of it is a rebuilding at this point.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've known Bill for 20 plus years, and he's, believe it or not, when you sit down and talk to him and break bread with him, really good dude. And obviously football smart beyond anyone can imagine. I am surprised that he has gone down this rabbit hole because he is football first, and he's all about no PR and all about doing business. And all the years he coached with the Patriots and all the other organizations, he was about football and winning games. This is a new side of him. And is it middle-age crisis? Is it? I'm not really sure what's.
I think it's late-age crisis.
Yeah. But no, it's very interesting to see how he's taking this. I would advise him, and I think a PR firm would advise him to bring in the reins, get back to Bill Belichick. But I think Bill is Bill, and he's made all this money. He's got all this future money. He can do whatever he wants to do. He's enjoying this, and obviously their relationship is not just personal, it's professional, and this is what he's going to do. And I don't think there's anyone going to tell Bill Belichick how to do it. I think it may bite him in the rear at some point, but at the end of the day, he is who he is, and he's successful, and I wish him the best of luck.
North Carolina can't be loving this because when you get Belichick, you're going to get all this attention anyway. Winning football games winning football, basketball, it always pushes everything to the back burner. If you get off to a 1-3 start and a 1-4, God, the vultures start swarming, and Bill isn't focused the way he once was, and then Carolina has to maybe get involved. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Let me ask you this question: did we ever talk about Colorado football before Deion Sanders?
Not for years.
Have we talked about UNC Carolina football in recent time?
When Mac Brown had it cooking, but it was all about the football, right?
So we're talking about it.
We're
in May, and we're talking about UNC football. I agree with you.
You just don't want to become a punchline.
Correct. And winning games solves all this stuff. And so UNC, I'm sure, is hoping that, obviously, they brought him in there to win games, and they hope it happens. And if it does, this goes to the side, and everybody just talks about UNC football. It helps in recruiting and all these things. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Okay, let me ask you about what happened in the UFL this week. The Players Union, the UFL, for those who don't know,
I was going to say, you may want to.
Spring Football League, which spring football leagues, USFL, UFL, World League, they've never been successful. But the UFL is trying to keep it together, and their Players Union signed a new collective bargaining agreement this week, ending months of negotiations, including there was a preseason quarterback holdout and talks of a strike at various points. And it's interesting to me, but it's also humorous. I always think when you're dealing with negotiations, you know this better than me, there's a word called leverage that you must have. And I'm trying to understand, what leverage would anybody in the UFL have other than Fox has sold some advertising inventory and maybe ESPN has, but that's not enough to get these team owners in the league to come to the table and give them what they want. So what am I missing?
And there wasn't really a lockout, just to clarify, because I have clients and actually have a quarterback that was part of this quote-unquote lockout. They were to report a few days early. They didn't report a few days early. But when everything started, they all went on board. And the goal was to increase salary, to increase medical benefits. And those were the main things that these players wanted, to make sure that, A, they were getting compensated, but more importantly, that in the spring, if they get injured or anything happens, they have some protection. So there was no leverage. It's a win-win for all parties. It's not a place you're going to have a career. It's a place you hopefully is a jump start, or to get back into the league where you could springboard and do what you need to do on the football field that an NFL team allows you to come in there and compete. Because when the spring league ends, there's a window that you can sign with an NFL team. And the goal is to make that jump. And at the end of the day, that's all they care about.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk to David Thorpe. David is the owner of the Pro Training Center. He's worked as a personal coach with NBA players, high-level college players for a very long time. The business that we talk about on this show a lot when it comes to things like the development of athletes, the NIL world, all that stuff which is now front and center. We'll pick his brain about how he's involved in that next. All right, we continue this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley and Matt. Thanks again. I will remind you guys, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your favorite pods. Every podcast platform, just search Deals and Deadlines. New episodes drop each and every Friday. You can also watch this little extravaganza on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, joining us now, David Thorpe is the owner of the Pro Training Center. David's been a personal coach working with NBA high-level college players for a long time, and as the business of sports evolves, he's going to have a big role in moving forward with some of these athletes. David, we appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a great time to be involved in the NBA. Our games have been pretty amazing.
That is for sure. The playoffs always ramp that up. So give us a little background. Tell me about how you got involved in this side of the training world and working with kids, working with NBA players. How does that kind of evolve?
Oh, it's been a while now. So I was a high school coach. Hadley, remember, I had a great player for 4 years named Dimitri Hill, who played at Florida.
Meat hook.
Right. So I started coaching him in 8th grade for our high school team after his season ended for his 8th grade team. But during that process, it looked like I was going to be a college coach. I had a lot of opportunities. I was newly married in 1990. I got married. I'm happy to say I'm still married to her, and I think partly because I chose not to coach in college. It's a pretty rough thing for a young couple. But I didn't want to just be a high school teacher, so I started player development as a business for high school players. I've charged $25 an hour and $15 an hour for middle school age players. This is back in 1993 when that really didn't exist for basketball. And just over time, as I kind of grew the business out, and a lot of my players went Division I and were really terrific players, and it kind of morphed into an agent calling me asking if I would help with his guys in the draft in 1999. And two of my players that I helped with the pre-draft got drafted in 99. And then I started helping some kids really for nothing that were in college, and one of them ended up going to the NBA in the first round, named Kevin Martin. That was in 2004 draft. At the same time, I was working with an athlete, another Gator named Udonis Haslam, who had not yet made the NBA, and he was kind of my first project for off-season work for potential NBA players. And then it just kind of tipped from there. So I realized in 2006 that these guys really need a lot of help year-round. At the same time, I started working at ESPN, and the two things worked well together. I didn't have to ask any of my players for tickets to games because I had a media credential with ESPN, and I started helping my players really around the clock. It's really personal coaching. It's not really training. I'm a basketball coach. I'm not a trainer. And I don't know. I think I've had 130 some odd players. I don't really keep track. Someone does it for me. It's been a lot. I've been doing this 22 seasons now, and it's getting bigger and bigger because these players need individual help more and more. Adam Silver, our commissioner, has talked about the anxiety a lot of our players feel. that is something that I have to do as a problem solver as a coach is deal with that aspect of the game, and social media and betting is a big deal. These guys are getting hammered online a lot, and my job is to help them solve problems on the court and to find joy in what they do every day. And deal with the ups and downs of being professional basketball players.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch how David's business has grown over the years, and taking something that you have a passion about. And I'm assuming, because I haven't asked you this personally, but I'm assuming you're not charging $25 an hour anymore. is that safe to say, Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no hourly rate anymore. It is that. But that's why I mentioned it.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be married to the same woman. I can tell you that.
No, definitely not. You're right. But
so Dave, let me ask you this:
players make a lot of money.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Let me ask you. So,
yeah,
what's changed in recent years? Obviously, the NFL and training and the IMG academies and places like that have been around for a while. And you found a niche where, basketball players, and it was more, the NBA guys. And now you're seeing a lot more college guys. And with the nuance of the NIL and guys looking to change, how does your involvement with that part of the process, how has that evolved?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, actually. So I'm much more involved now. I took 8 college players last year for the first time. And they all made decent 6 figures. I have a new class coming in because most of those guys will go to the NBA. And I've got, at least 3 guys making over $1 million. I probably have 6 guys making over $1 million. One guy over 3, another guy over 2. That's for college. And so what's happening now is their agents are asking me to get involved on the choice of schools for the transfer portal. I had there's a player that plays for the Gators that I was very involved in choosing this Florida as a school for less money. The athlete just trusted me that even though he'll make less money at Florida than somewhere else, the platform for his NBA future was better. And obviously Florida won a national championship, worked out great. And now, because I have a virtual training business for high school kids, most of them are not going to be anything but maybe low Division I level players at best. I do have a couple guys that are very high NBA prospects, and so I'm already doing that with them. They have NIL agents. I don't take part of any of that. I'm just looking at what the basketball platform is in terms of opportunity to get better as a player, to grow as a person, so that the NBA money is so generational wealth, focused. That to me is the big chase. Is don't worry about the extra money you might make for a year or 2 in college. If you really have a chance to make, I've guys. One of my players will make $400 million in his career, and a number of my other guys will make in the 3s and 2s. So I'm the person that looks at the basketball roster and the style of play and best advises the agent and the player on, here's where I think this player can do best at.
Well, let's talk about that, because the game itself has changed so much that you started doing this in the early 90s. Now we have 6'11" three-point shooters everywhere. We have everybody wants to handle the ball. The whole dynamic of how we develop these players has changed. So how has that changed your strategy, your coaching, your training, whatever you want to call it, to prepare these guys both for the college level and the NBA level?
Well, it's a little bit. I'm a little bit fortunate in that I've always believed that help my players just be better at everything. The meat hook played point guard for me every summer so we could better understand how to feed the post. That's why he led the SEC in scoring his senior year. He was a basketball player. We didn't just let him be a post-up player when he was in high school, and he obviously was a great high school player. And so there's a huge focus on fitness and conditioning. I can't stress that enough. This game is so much harder now because everyone, like you said, everyone dribbles, passes, and shoots. And so you're covering so much more ground defensively. So a lot of my players will have their own physios. We take a lot of pride in finding the best strength trainers and nutritionists and everything. They've got to eat healthy and all of that. And then my thing is, are you the kind of coach that is going to love your players up and guide them, or are you old school yeller and screamer? Some of my guys are great being yelled and screamed at. Most of my guys want to feel like you love them, and you can coach them hard. I'm not soft with my players. I don't have to scream at these guys. They pay me, so they're already invested in it. But you have to understand personalities. I think it was a little bit different 30 years ago. I think it's better now. Our players are more cynical. They've been hustled more, and so I think they're smarter. And so we have to find coaches that really understand how to connect with these guys, and also give them a leash. Our game is a game of mistakes, just like any other game. you got to be allowed to play through it. And some of these coaches are a little bit too old school, a little too Bobby Knight for me. And my players tend to prosper much better. Most players do when they're given a chance to fail and learn. And then over time, the body of work should support why they play so much.
Do you find guys that are now playing on the collegiate level that have an NBA future or at least a professional future? Mm-hmm. Are they chasing the money with the NIL and entering the portal every year as a free agent? Or do a lot of them or most of them really look at the macro of it and look at the coaching and the development so they can be there, look at their getting their degree, staying at the same team for multiple years? What do you find the mixture is going on right now?
Yeah, I think a lot has to do with their team that they're with personally, agent, NIL agent, how their family reacts. I tend to be attracted to clients who look at big picture. And so in most cases, in fact, I'm not sure I've ever had a case where the player took the most money. It's never been the case where the most money was also the best fit. And I just had a guy agreed over $3 million the other day. It's an amazing platform. I don't think it's the best place for him to play better basketball necessarily, but it's close enough. And so, okay, if that's the highest money, you can take that too. But there's no arguing the platform's unbelievable. It's, he's going to one of the top schools in the country if he doesn't stay in the draft, which is also part of the deal. But most of these kids, if they're guided, good parenting and good agents, they can make good business decisions. And I can't stress that enough. And obviously that's what you guys are doing. This is a business, and you have to help the families understand that it's a business. However, guys, it's fair to say, if the family is really destitute, and we do deal with that sometimes, we have to consider that. But I'm proud to say that most of my athletes, even for 20 years now, they understand the big picture. Their families understand it. The exceptions are rare. The norm is they get it, and they want to do the best thing long term and not just look at the short term.
Well, there's two things, David, I'm curious about. The way social media has changed it, how we find kids now. It used to be, we're going to go scout them, we're going to go find them in high schools. But now they're finding recruiters. They're finding people like you through social media. Yeah. And I would guess the offshoot to that is you have to have a bunch of competitors now in your field because they saw this business model and thought, I can do the same thing.
I'm so private. Like Hadley was asking me beforehand, who do I work with? I'm just a big believer in not using those players to market my skills. Luckily, all the agents and most of the players and the teams, like I deal with head coaches and executives all the time, in part because I'm not trying to build my business bigger. I don't know that there's a lot of other people that do what I do. It's hard. It's just these guys, again, they've been hustled so much that if you can't deliver results, you're going to get fired. It's in fact, a lot of guys, remember, one of my jobs in the summer is to help find a coach for them. I can't have 40 players in my gym all summer. I mix and match. I tend to go see guys here and there. They've got to find coaches to spend day to day with them. And if they're at a certain level with me as a client, I pay for it all. So the trainer really ends up working for me. But they get like one day. These athletes will move on quickly if you don't know what you're doing on day one. I welcome the competition. To me, there's 450 NBA players, give or take. I can't have too many. I already have 3 full-time assistants. I'm busy enough as it is. Now that my kids are grown, I can do a lot more than I could before. But these players need personal coaching in part. I don't think our coach in the NBA do the same job in the NFL or Major League Baseball. They don't really connect with these guys. There are exceptions. And so these players are really on their own. And that's a comment I get a lot from both parents. I don't deal with parents a whole lot, but when I do, they tend to say they're comforted knowing that their son has someone watching out for them on a day-to-day that doesn't work for the team, because sometimes those values are not the same. And so, I think players can use social media for a lot of good things. Most of my guys, fellas, they tend to stay off it. Once they get to the NBA, it's too stressful. In fact, during this time of year, you'll never see them on it. It's all about winning playoff games.
100%, and that's something we preach to all of our clients, no matter what sport there is. When you're playing your sport and you're in season, stay focused and really stay, attention to what pays the bills, which is playing the game.
Todd, David, we appreciate the time. It's a great story. It's a great business, and it's just going to keep getting bigger as we move forward. Thanks for spending some time with us. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dave.
There's David Thorpe, the owner of the Pro Training Center, continuing to work with a lot of these young basketball players who get paid a lot earlier. All right, coming up, speaking of getting paid, imagine being a college basketball national champion when you're talking about a new contract. let's just say it's a different discussion than was being had a season ago or a summer ago. We'll tell you why coming up next. All right, we continue with this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley and Matt. I will remind you, by the way, thanks for joining us. I'll remind you can subscribe to our little podcast on any podcast platform. Just search Deals and Deadlines, new episodes. They drop each and every Friday. And again, you can always watch this on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. Now, my friend Hadley, a very proud Florida alum, so this topic will touch you. Todd Golden, the head coach of the national champion Florida Gators, just found himself in a position of leverage to talk about a new contract.
Speaking of leverage, not UFL leverage.
No, he's agreed to a new 6-year contract through 2031 that will make him one of the highest paid coaches in the country. That's good timing when it comes to talking about a new deal. It wasn't that long ago. There were some allegations made about Todd Golden and what was happening on campus, and a student newspaper alleged that he was chatting with...
See how we just talked about that with Justin Tucker?
Sure.
All of a sudden...
It changes. Well, so the allegations were that he was interacting with girls on social media, trying to meet them at places on campus. I don't know. I wasn't there, but there were a lot of allegations made. Here we are now, just several months later. He's won a championship, and he's got himself a new deal. Winning does seem to cure all.
It sure does. And the interesting thing about his deal, and I don't know if it's been made public to everybody, but it's obviously paying him handsomely. There is large amounts of buyout that if he goes to another college, sort of what they did with Billy Napier, it's in the double-digit millions of dollars. The interesting cutout is that if he goes to the NBA, and I haven't seen the final deal yet, the buyout is very minimal, like $1 million or $2 million, such a small number. So obviously in his negotiations, which I wasn't privy to, there's an interest in possibly going to the NBA. And if the NBA comes calling to go, there's not a financial commitment per se. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. He's built, obviously, an amazing team, and a lot of guys are returning there. But you're seeing teams, especially in the SEC, investing more and more money into basketball. It was a football-only conference. Only coaches that coach football made double digits, in the millions of dollars. Now you're seeing them spend money, and not just the powerhouses like the Kentuckys of the world. You're seeing schools like Florida, and you're seeing other schools, as they win, they're going to invest more in their product, and it's going to be great for basketball. I really believe that basketball as a sport, college basketball, is on a big uptick.
All right, let me ask you about a couple of hockey stories, believe it or not. So there's a name change. The Utah Hockey Club has finally announced they have their mascot, their slogan, their new nickname, and this has been a big thing for Utah when they had the team. They were the Utah Hockey Club, and they thought they had a name earlier. There was a cease and desist that came in. They had to change it. So now they've settled on the Utah Mammoth. Listen, who am I to judge? I think we're out of good names in sports, but that's what they've landed on. Tell me the background of when it comes to vetting this kind of thing, when you're bringing in a marketing firm and when you're bringing in so many people. I mean, we have to believe this is such a grandiose decision behind the scenes for a team that they spare no expense in coming up with the right answer.
They spend a lot of time, a lot of resources, and a lot of money. Not just the Utah Hockey Club, the Mammoths, but any franchise that's new, especially when relocation too. Do you retain the name? Do you go with a different name? So there are all these factors, and they look at bottom line. And I think you nailed it, where there's limited names out there that aren't already used. So sometimes you want to reuse a name if it's trendy, or you want to use a name that has ties to your city or your state. And if you can find something that's unique and different to your city or state that's going to market and people are going to be excited about it, I think it's great. And we can mock it. We can, the Mammoths, and who knows what
Hadley, there's no S. It's just the Mammoth.
Exactly. Sorry, the Mammoth. Sorry, correction. But it'll be very interesting to see. But they do spend a lot of time and resources. And even when you come to relocating a franchise, all these factors are put into place to make sure that you're vetting it the right way to make the most money and do the right branding.
I'm going to give the NHL credit, and something you and I talk about on this podcast a lot. You've got to take chances. Ideas don't work sometimes, but you have to take the chance to make them work. Last season, the NHL said we're going to get rid of the All-Star game for now. We're going to try something different. They did the Four Nations face-off, which turned out to be this huge success. Now, is it easier when it's about country pride and wrapping yourself in a flag when we're doing these things? Sure. But now Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, said they're also going to cancel the 2026 NHL All-Star Game in favor of an international event before the Winter Olympics. He didn't indicate if they'll do something similar to the Four Nations or something else. they're willing to try another event. And Hadley, this is a big discussion point here. We're in Atlanta where we're going to have the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. We know the NFL pivoted from a Pro Bowl to Pro Bowl games. The NBA tried a different format with a tournament and doing different things. So they're all trying things. Some are wild mistakes, and some do hit like the Four Nations face-off. I give these leagues credit. You can't just sit back, criticize what's not working like we do, and then just keep running the same playbook. They're trying different things.
I think it's wonderful that they're trying these new concepts. They want to create viewership. They want to create excitement. And if it gets old and there's lack of viewership, we talk about this all the time. It comes down to money. It comes down to marketing. It comes down to branding. And if there are issues with that, you have to adjust. You have to pivot and go with the new times. And so with the Olympics coming up to do another international, I think it'll be similar to what we saw last year, and which was great. I'm not the biggest hockey fan. Love the playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs. But that Four Nations was TV time. Yeah. I mean, I really, really watched that. So you have to see what these teams are doing, what these sports are doing. The interesting one is the NBA. That is the one that hasn't done well in an all-star format. Of the major team sports, baseball's the only one you could play without having an injury factor. So you could still play the game. Pitchers are still trying to win. Hitters are still trying to hit. So that's the one that's true to a game. In the NFL, what's happened is guys don't want to get hurt. It's the offseason. They're a free agent. They can't risk anything. Mm-hmm. So it became a touch football, and now they're doing these different types of games. So it'll be very interesting to see how the teams continue to evolve and continue to brand it because, again, you want it to be must-see TV. You want fans to watch it, and I'm glad hockey's taking the initiative and people are following in those footsteps.
Other than the money, and I don't want to just push that aside, nothing has changed when it comes to the injury factor. There was always an injury factor in the NBA playing, if you actually played a little defense in the All-Star game, or if you hit somebody in the Pro Bowl. Not that there was ever Ronnie Lott coming across the middle laying anybody out. But, man, we've seen in the last 5 or 10 years, again, maybe it's the money or maybe it's the athlete's voice. Right?
It's a combination.
Right. They all want to be voted in and they all want to get the recognition, but I don't want to take the chance of getting hurt in a game like that.
Correct. And you'll see, especially in a lot of contracts, especially in the NFL, if they put Pro Bowl incentives in there, it's first nomination and you have to play in it. So they don't want you to just to get the accolades and then say, I'm out.
Right.
Here's my $100,000, my $1 million bonus. They want you to play in it. So teams are using that as a leverage point to make sure that they're helping build the overall brand of it. But the money is so big right now, Matt, that it outweighs getting these accolades.
Yeah, the risk is too much for the reward. 100%. All right, I want to thank you guys, number one, for watching, for listening, for digging into this mighty podcast. And hopefully you do it each every week. You can guarantee it by subscribing wherever you're listening. We are available on every podcast platform. Again, new episodes drop each and every Friday, and you can dig into some of these episodes on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. Thank you to Bella. I think we kept her attention mostly today. And thank you to you guys for spending your time with us. We're back next time for the next edition of Deals and Deadlines.